This week, we are going to take a look at the case for putting the B-52's into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now that we are done looking at the cases for all of the artists who are nominated for this year's class of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we're going to get back to doing what we normally do and look forward to making the case for next year's Hall of Fame. With that in mind, we are going to take a look at the case for putting the Atlanta, Georgia band, the B-52's, into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in the class of 2026. So, as we always do, time to get stat hunting. To the tail of the tape we go. The B-52's released 7 studio albums, 1 EP, 6 compilation albums, and 3 live albums. Out of those, 6 of those went top 40, with 4 of those going to the top 20, and 1 of those, 1989's Cosmic Thing, hitting the top 5 and was their biggest selling album. They also had 31 singles. Out of those, 5 went top 40, with 2 of those, 1989's Love Shack and 1990's Rome, both from their 1989 smash album Cosmic Thing, going to number 3. As far as their influence goes, since the Rock Hall voters like that sort of thing, both they, Widespread Panic, and REM came out of the Athens, Georgia music scene, which influenced alternative music in the 1980s and 90s, along with the college radio scene. The phrase college radio was used back in the day to mean alternative music or to mean virtually anything that college radio stations would play that the pop and rock stations wouldn't play. The B-52's, In Excess way back in the early days, Widespread Panic, and a bunch of other artists, including hip-hop artists, all got their start on college radio long before they crossed over to the mainstream radio stations and ended up getting mainstream success. In fact, In Excess's first 2 albums were actually college albums, technically. Anyway, back to the B-52's. The B-52's also directly influenced John Lennon to come out of retirement. According to interviews back in the late 1970s, John heard the group's cult classic song Rock Lobster and thought that it was great. He also thought that the song sounded like the music that he and Yoko Ono used to make, so if the B-52's could do it and become a cult band, then maybe it was time for him to get back to work. What John and other groups like Timbuk 3 and They Might Be Giants were influenced by were the quirky lyrics and pop culture references of B-52 bandmates Fred Schneider, Kate Pearson, who was also the female voice on REM's 1991 hit Shiny Happy People, Keith Strickland and the Wilson siblings, Cindy and her late older brother Ricky, who sadly passed away from AIDS-related illness in 1985 before they hit superstardom with Cosmic Thing. A fun fact for you, after Ricky's death, Keith Strickland moved from drums to guitar, and the group has had a rotation of drummers ever since. In fact, Zach Alford, who played drums for Bruce Springsteen and David Bowie, played drums in the group's music video for Love Shack and also on Bruce Springsteen's MTV Unplugged album and video, simply called MTV Plugged. Anyway, when you consider the groups who have been put into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, especially lately, you begin to wonder why the B-52's haven't been put into the Hall. I mean, they've been eligible since 2004. Their self-titled album is on Rolling Stone magazine's Top 500 Albums of All Time list, and Rock Lobster is on Rolling Stone magazine's Top 500 Songs of All Time list. And yet, they have never been nominated for induction, which is why a lot of people hate the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Actually, one of many reasons. Between the B-52's commercial success with songs like Rock Lobster, Private Idaho, Rome, and Love Shack, and their influence on the alternative music scene, especially back in the 1980s and 90s, the B-52's absolutely deserve to be inducted, finally, into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And that is it for Who Deserves to Be Inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We also invite you to check out our other podcast, the Music History Today podcast, where we go over what happened on that date in music history. That podcast drops daily, including weekends, on this channel that you're either watching or listening to this podcast on. We also have the Music History In-Depth podcast, where we go more in-depth into the events that happened for that week in music history. And that podcast posts every Tuesday on this channel that you're either watching or listening to this podcast on. Thank you very, very much for listening or watching if you're on YouTube or Spotify.